All right, today we're diving into some of my favorite things, the little paradoxes of modern life. You know, those weird, counterintuitive ideas that, once you hear them, perfectly explain why we feel the way we do. These aren't just fun brain teasers. They are literally the hidden rules that can mess with our happiness and our anxieties. So, let's get into it.
I mean, come on, we've all been there, right? You've got literally endless choices on a dozen different streaming apps, and what happens? You feel stuck. You just give up. Well, I'm here to tell you that feeling of being totally overwhelmed by all the options, it's not some personal flaw. It is a very real, very well-documented psychological trap. And yeah, that trap actually has a name: the tyranny of choice. This is the first paradox we're going to unpack today, and it completely flips the script on the idea that more is always better. As you're about to see, sometimes more is just less.
So what is it exactly? Well, the whole theory, which was made famous by psychologist Barry Schwartz, is that having all these options doesn't actually free us, it paralyzes us. The sheer mental energy it takes to weigh every single possibility is so exhausting that we often end up feeling less happy with whatever we choose than if we'd only had a couple of things to pick from in the first place.
And this is how it happens. This is the downward spiral. First, you get hit with paralysis. That's you scrolling and scrolling on Netflix, unable to just pick something. Then, okay, let's say you do make a choice. Right away, regret kicks in. You start wondering about all the other movies you didn't watch. And finally, you've got these ridiculously high expectations. I mean, with 1,000 choices, the one you pick better be perfect, right? And that sets you up for disappointment almost every time. Now here's the thing. This paradox doesn't hit everyone the same way. It really boils down to your own personal style. So you have to ask yourself, are you a maximizer or a satisficer? Maximizers are the people who feel this intense pressure to find the absolute single best option. It leads to tons of stress and regret. But satisficers? They just aim for good enough. Once they find something that meets their criteria, they pick it and move on. And guess what? The research shows they're almost always happier with their choices. So, which one are you?
Okay, so let's move from the private anxiety of making a choice to the very public anxiety of social comparison. This next paradox tackles a feeling that has become super common, especially in the age of social media. You know the feeling, you're scrolling your feed and it's just a highlight reel of parties you weren't invited to, amazing vacations, and huge groups of friends laughing. It is so easy to feel like you're falling behind, like you're not doing it right. But what if I told you that feeling isn't a feeling at all? What if it's just math?
Yep, you heard that right. The friendship paradox isn't in your head. It is a proven statistical quirk of how social networks are built. It has nothing to do with your personality or how cool you are. It's literally just a mathematical reality.
So how on earth does this work? Well, it's actually way simpler than it sounds. Think about it. Who are you more likely to become friends with? Someone who knows tons and tons of people, or a total recluse who knows nobody? Obviously, you're more likely to be friends with a social butterfly, right? Because they just have way more connections, which gives them more chances to connect with you. So your group of friends is naturally going to be skewed towards including these super popular people, and that pulls the average popularity of your friend group way up.
And this explains so much about why social media can be so brutal for our mental health. It takes this weird statistical fact and just puts it on steroids. You are constantly overexposed to the lives of the most connected, most popular people, which gives you this completely warped view of what normal life looks like. It's no wonder it's such a massive driver of anxiety, envy, and that constant feeling of comparison.
Okay, for our third and final paradox, we're going to turn inward. We've talked about choices, we've talked about social comparison. Now let's talk about the search for happiness itself, and why trying too hard to find it can be the very thing that pushes it away.
The psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl just absolutely nailed it with this one quote. He said, "Happiness cannot be pursued, it must ensue." This just perfectly captures the essence of what we're talking about. Happiness isn't some destination you can just run towards. It's something that happens as a result of other things.
This is what's known as the hedonism paradox. It's this backward idea that the more you obsess over being happy, the more you start analyzing every feeling. You start asking yourself, am I happy right now? Is this fun? Am I having enough fun? And that pressure alone makes real joy pretty much impossible. Happiness, it turns out, is a byproduct. It's the surprise reward you get for living a life filled with purpose, not the prize you win for chasing it down.
So what's the escape hatch? How do you get out of this trap? Well, it's about shifting your focus. You move away from extrinsic goals, things like money, status, stuff that needs someone else's approval, and you move towards intrinsic goals, things like growing as a person, building deep relationships, being creative. These are things you do for their own sake, and they are far, far more likely to lead to that deep, lasting sense of fulfillment.
All right, so we've looked at these three pretty wild paradoxes. What's the takeaway? How can knowing about these hidden rules of life actually help us live better?
Let's just boil it down. From the paradox of choice, we learn that real freedom isn't about having a million options, it's about being confident in the choices you make, even if they're just good enough. From the friendship paradox, the lesson is crystal clear. What you see online is a warped highlight reel. It is not a fair measuring stick for your own life. And finally, the hedonism paradox teaches us that real fulfillment doesn't come from chasing pleasure, it comes from finding purpose.
So here's the bottom line. Our brains, our intuition about what we think will make us happy, it's often just plain wrong. It's flawed. Understanding these paradoxes is like getting a better map for modern life. It helps us override those faulty instincts and start making choices that actually lead to real, genuine contentment.
And that brings us to the final question I want to leave you with. If these paradoxes are working just under the surface, shaping how we feel, what other hidden rules might be out there, influencing your decisions and your life without you even knowing it? Thanks for joining